Hello and welcome back to the Double Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined today by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Brett,
Hello.
Wyatt,
Hi.
and Alex.
I've been playing solitaire in the background of every episode of the podcast before here, and none of you have ever noticed.
I like how
That's how
you
you
said that
start.
as if it was an intentionally bad thing to do.
Like, oh, you naughty boy.
All right. With that, let's get our show started. This is technically the Thanksgiving episode. You know, it's a Thanksgiving episode, but because Thanksgiving is a lame holiday, we don't.
Wow.
Yeah, true.
Hey,
He's right.
I'm not calling out the events that you might do with your family on Thanksgiving if you're American, but I mean, what's the point, right? It's sandwiched between two good holiday seasons, right? You got
Exactly.
Halloween, and then
It's
you got the Christmas, Hanukkah holiday season. So you've
The
got
point is to have a lovely feast with your family.
yeah, but turkey sucks. So,
I
Yeah,
disagree.
I'm not sure if I go that
I-
far.
No,
I
Not sure
would-
if
I
go
would-
that
I'm
I'm
being controversial for the sake of being controversial.
I would take a grocery store rotisserie chicken over a turkey any day of the week.
Wow.
far. I'm expecting both of these guys to just pull their human
Yeah,
masks off and there's just turkeys underneath. Like, geez, dude.
All
We
right,
will avenge our brethren.
it's the anti-turkey store. I don't know if there's a turkey store somewhere, but it's got to be a turkey
Turkeys
store.
will gobble up. I mean,
right.
rise up.
So, for our little Friendsgiving potluck of an episode today, we got a couple of things we're going to talk about. All right.
Bored.
So, excuse me, Wyatt? So, it's episode 86. We are working our way up to 100, and we've got a few things to talk about. We got some gaming news this week that has happened that's pretty fun. We got some Riot Forge stuff, which they did a big drop of all their League of Legends spin-off property, new Runeterra creative universe thing that now exists. So we get to talk about some of these games that actually look pretty good. Battlefield 2042
Looking great.
The biggest
Looking-
joke of the century. My
great.
God.
Looking amazing.
It's amazing that there are two games, number 1 and number
Here we
8
go.
of the lowest rated Steam games of all time, and one of them is Konami and one of them is EA, and they both came out this year, and that's just incredible. 2021.
Oh,
friggin'
what's the
rocks,
Konami
man.
one?
E-soccer 2022.
Oh,
or
so just
like that.
something-
E-football. It's
Okay.
something throwaway.
Wow.
A sports franchise. All right. So
a live service sports franchise now.
we're gonna start out with our game this week. We haven't started with a game in a while, but in the spirit of Battlefield 2042, I have a fun little review game for us to do. So I'm gonna give you all a quote from a critic review of a Battlefield game, and I need you to tell me what Battlefield game is attached to. This is including everything after 1942, not
Oh, I
including
lose.
1942. So
I don't even
nothing
know all the
pre
Battlefield
like
games.
2010-ish. But there's still plenty of Battlefield games to choose from. We're gonna start out. In fact, I don't even know what Battlefield this is from because I didn't write it down. So let me pick one that I do know what it's from.
And you could say the quote and just be like, "Oh, we'll never know."
Battlefield.
We're on a tight ship here, folks.
Battlefield is an excellent multiplayer FPS with wildly varied vehicles and interesting maps.
Well, it's not
Battlefield,
one.
the
'Cause one
original.
had no vehicles.
That's not true. What are you talking about?
They weren't as prevalent as they were.
What are you
in-
talking
in-
about? This
didn't
is
see-
not going to become the Battlefield argument. I'm sorry. Why it's wrong? Listen to me. Anyway, next is that actually the quote from the
That is the
review
quote.
or
That
no?
is the
Okay, I thought
entire
you were saying
quote.
The one.
I'm gonna say 3.
I'm gonna say 2 because I've never played it before, and I'm gonna lose anyway.
2 is not on this list. 2 is
He's
too
on the
early.
list. Yeah.
I'll give you the list of titles that I've pulled these from. Is Battlefield 4, obviously, Hardline, 2042,
Oh.
3, and 1 and 5, the World War ones. So
Not Bad
Oh.
Company. What about Bad Company?
I don't have any Bad Company on here.
Okay.
I'll go with Hardline on this one.
I think I'm gonna actually go with 1.
All right, Wyatt.
3.
That's Battlefield 4. That's a Battlefield 4 quote.
Damn it.
They
Huh.
emphasize vehicles, so I mean, vehicles were just like
I've
fine.
played Battlefield 4. That's the only one I've played. There have not been vehicles in it for me, except the ones I've been run over by.
All right.
Which was a
So
boat one.
Battlefield has a lot of problems. From its optimization, questionable design, and various bugs, it is clear that the game was not completely ready to be released.
This could actually be for a lot of
I know. That's why I chose
this makes it a difficult question.
I mean,
because this could be everything from 4 onward.
I mean, here's the thing, because
Yeah.
like immediately when I think of bad launch, I think of 4, because that's like
Yeah,
the first
same.
one where it was really bad. But they were saying that has questionable design, which 4 didn't have. 4 had good design underneath the bugs.
Is it
It makes me
one?
feel. It makes me because one was actually relatively bug free after the beta because the beta was like actually in advance.
Yeah.
That makes me feel like it's 2042.
Yeah, same.
But that's
Okay.
not the one that recently came out, is it?
Yes,
it
it
is.
is.
That is the one that just came out.
Are the reviews out for it? Yeah, sure, 2042.
Yeah, that is 2042. Yeah, I had to throw an easy
There you
one
go.
in there.
That's a very good way of putting that game in general. That was very well
I-
done.
I would have thought after its initial, like the state they put it out in, they would have been smart enough to have a review embargo.
No, they didn't even bother with that.
It's because
They
the
didn't even bother
review
being that
process
scummy.
for Battlefield 2042 was, according to reviewers that were at the events, it was a 10-hour event basically, and that was the entirety of the time they had pre-launch for reviews. It was like 2 hours and 4 hours, and it's split across game modes. So, all right.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I know how I feel about that.
This Battlefield's release was smooth, but
Battlefield 1.
One.
it plays like something novel
What?
and worthwhile.
1.
Battlefield 1. This is the easiest question. Though.
Battlefield
One.
1. Yeah.
All right, that's Hardline.
Based. Let's go. I actually like Hardline a lot.
Hardline is hard to find reviews for that are not easy to figure out what they are, because
Yeah.
almost
makes
everything
sense.
mentions the cops and robbers twist immediately.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But all right, you've passed our game pretty good for the most part, and not really. You got one of them.
I used context clues and cheated.
I mean, hey, sometimes that's the best solution to success.
That's what you got to do.
All right, so now we're gonna move on and talk about some of the news from this week. That we've got we got Battlefield out of the way for now. We're inevitably gonna end up talking about it again and having a bad time.
Yeah.
But
Just wait.
I need a reprieve.
I'm never not going to have anger set aside in my psyche for
it's like pent
Yeah.
up
It's
frustration
always
and
gonna be there.
rage.
It idles at like a 7 out of 10 rage at all moments of the day.
Okay, so we had a surprise launch this week.
We did.
It's technically still within this week. Halo Infinite surprise launched, and by surprise launch I mean we all knew it was happening, and we all immediately got very addicted.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to spend that much time on it. I've been very busy.
I know you've been very busy playing Halo Infinite. Too
and-
busy
and
to
I,
play
and I
Halo
haven't
Infinite.
and I haven't really been able to play much of it yet.
I do want to remind people that as of the recording of this podcast, Halo Infinite has been out for less than a week. The multiplayer's been out for less than a week.
Are you gonna do this to me? Are you
Do
gonna
it.
do this to me?
And
Wyatt and I have
trigger
played it for
Ryan.
over 2 days.
You're gonna call me out like that?
I would just like
Exact
to
time.
mention that he has spent more than a full work week of hours in the past 6 days in Halo Infinite, which I don't know if it's a bad thing, but it's probably a bad thing. All right.
This man's still in school, ladies and gentlemen. He's got more important things to worry about than playing Halo Infinite.
But what if it's really good?
Well, it just so happens that it is.
And we'll talk
And
more
so
about
you
that
can't
very
judge
soon.
me for it too much.
Hey, I have
you can.
one
Yes,
of
you
our favorite individuals to pop up on the show occasionally as a good old Bobby Kotick,
Oh.
I thought you
that
could
was
say
sarcasm.
as-
CEO of Activision. And Bobby Kotick is in some hot water right now because, well, obviously he was already in hot water. Now he's like
He's
the
in
frog
hotter
boiling
water.
over.
Yeah,
He's
turn-
in like
turn
a
that water
hot
into
ocean
boiling.
right now.
Yeah, he is in
Not getting
an
any
ocean
better.
of lava that is
It
not
was,
going to cool
it
down.
was simmering pretty bad. Now it's a rolling boil.
So, Kotick, a article came out from let me make sure I have the actual release date. But the article that came out basically stated that Kotick had likely known, it was from Wall Street Journal, had likely known about the sexual misconduct going on for years. That's really bad. Then
That's Kotick.
Yeah.
there was an immediate petition of 500 Activision Blizzard employees to remove Bobby Kotick, which now has over 1,000 employees signing it. So, yeah, he's in hot water. Then Xbox and PlayStation chiefs both criticized Activision's handling and are evaluating their relationship with Activision right now.
Ooh.
Nice,
my.
nice.
That
Love to see
probably
it.
means nothing. In
Yeah.
all honesty, that likely doesn't mean very much, except for putting pressure on them to maybe
It's-
do something.
As long
Because
as
they
the
like
board,
money.
as long as, and this makes me just so sick to my stomach. As long as the board of directors is on Kotick's side for some reason.
Well, the issue, the board of directors for Activision Blizzard, a lot of them are friends of Kotick, and Kotick used some of his initial leverage to get them in the board. So there's a lot of conflict of interest going on.
Oh, great.
But it's
How many of them
reaching
are in
the
Epstein's
point.
Black Book too?
Yeah, it's reaching the point where there are so many things tied up specifically with Kotick right now that it does not seem good that he's going to keep that job very long, at least without something major happening, because employees are walking out. There was another walkout the other week. So it's been, I don't know, I feel like this has been a remarkably unproductive month for these companies because of this, and it's probably all centered on what the upper management has been doing. So maybe get that sorted would be my advice. But, you know, I don't know what we're going to see. We'll have to see how this plays
It's
out.
pretty decent advice, I'd say.
Maybe put Kotick in prison.
Maybe just don't harass
That'd be
people.
crazy.
Like, I feel like it's not that hard. Just don't harass people.
It's so easy not to be an ass that it takes me aback every time that someone is.
It may shock you how easy it is to be a pretty decent human being. It may actually shock you.
All right. So now that we've gotten that over, Rockstar had GTA Trilogy come out.
I
Now
thought we
One
were
right
going to
after
have some
another.
good news.
they have
2021.
Well, this is
baby.
kind of good news. This is kind of good news. So they relisted all the old versions of the games, and they're giving free copies of the old version of the games to everyone who got the trilogy pack.
Thank God.
So you can go play the original because the new ones are so buggy and awful.
The definitive edition.
The
Absolutely
defective
not.
edition.
The definitive
definitive
edition,
edition.
minus the music.
Yeah.
And everything else.
It was real rough.
And fun. And a sense of presentation.
And non-buggy visuals, you know, character models that kind of look half decent for their
So
age
you
at
can't-
least.
In the original, when you drive down a street and you go back and forth really fast, your car doesn't grow. You can do that in the new one. So clearly the new one is better. So I don't know.
It clearly
people
has the
play.
definitive rain effects as well, and is not the worst thing I have ever seen.
Yeah.
For
All right.
those of you watching and not listening, yes, my soul is actively being sucked out of my body.
Look, now we've got more fun things to talk about. So Riot Forge did a bunch of presentations this past week where they showed off a lot of the games that Riot has been partnering with other developers to work on. And we got a surprise drop for Ruined King, the JRPG-styled turn-based game that's made by I believe the Battle some Night War developers. I forget the second half of the Battle, but the Night War developers, which is a very, very good non-Japanese JRPG style game. And Ruined King's been getting good impressions so far. So I like getting shadow drops. It's a fun thing when it happens, especially when it happens out of literally nowhere. As far as I know, we did not know this was going to be happening.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I've been actually thinking about picking it up because it looks like visually very interesting, and if it has gameplay that I like already, then
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if
think
that's
it's
League
Battle
related.
Chasers Night War is the game that it's based off of, which I need to finish because it is from what I've played of it, a very, very solid game. So I want to get that done, and then maybe Ruin King, because Ruin King looks also very good. We also got the first look at the fighting game, Project L, which has been a long way in the making. The rumors for that game have existed for, I think, like 4 years now, since the acquisition of a fighting game studio that Riot acquired at one point. And now we finally have gameplay footage of what is their tag team fighter, which we already don't have enough of. I'm a big fan of tag team fighters. They're going for that 3D, almost Guilty Gear-esque style, which looks very good. But it looks very solid. The gameplay videos we saw looked great, especially considering this game is not slated to come out until 2023.
There's also they had like an almost Rayman style game, like
they had
2D.
Hextech Mayhem, which is made by the Bit Trip Runner developers, which is a long-running like rhythm platformer franchise, and that's also been getting relatively good impressions. Though it is a much smaller budget game compared to a lot of these. Then there was also Song of Nunu or something that was also teased, which was another like kind of open level platformer from what we saw of it. But all of these games I think look really impressive, and from the showcase that they did, I think a lot of people were expecting these games to look less high budget than they do.
Yeah.
I'm holding out my excitement because I don't want the current League of Legends community to get their hands on a fighting game and see what that turns into.
That does concern
I'm
me.
very worried about that.
Now that you say that does concern me.
Oh my!
Because you're mixing fighting games, which, fighting game communities are very, very different, because sometimes you get incredible ones depending on the game, and sometimes you get the worst, absolute worst pile of Call of Duty level trash. It's very locational, though. I don't know. Well, I think we'll see. It really, to me, is going to depend on how many people that play fighting games pick up Project L versus how many League of Legends players pick it up comparatively. Of like, are we getting League community playing a fighting game, or are we getting a fighting game community playing a League game, basically? So I'm curious to see how that's going to go.
A little dicey either way.
Yeah, either way, it's going to be an interesting start. But I was just very impressed by the showing, especially because I think Riot Forge was kind of the thing that a lot of people were cautiously pessimistic for. I want to say of like,
makes sense. Yeah.
It's hard to know what this is going to look like until we see gameplay footage, and I think especially the first Ruined King showcase that we saw did not look that great, especially visually.
It looked very basic.
It was like a year and a half ago, so it was a while.
Oh wow!
But
I mean, it's also just such a ambitious endeavor to come out with all of these games based around one franchise or one setting.
I mean, I've heard that there's a lot of lore behind League of Legends, though. I haven't delved into it myself.
Yeah,
but
apparently, if they can make this much content and a Netflix show about it,
use it. Don't just let it sit in one game. At least
also
try out some new things.
That also apparently is very good. The
Arcane's been getting great reviews as well from the initial few episodes.
Netflix just really nails it with every adaptation they do. Just
don't get me started.
Every single one of them.
Please,
well, Wyatt stops poking the bear. I think the interesting thing with the League of Legends expansion is that this is something we used to get a lot of, and we still do with some franchises like Warhammer. But this is like reminding me of the old Star Wars games, Rush.
Oh, totally.
Stuff like that. Back when like World of Warcraft
weekend.
Yeah, where we had Warcraft 3 coming out, and there were the books franchises coming out of that, and then World of Warcraft coming off of it. Stuff like this kind of expansion of games, and like this is a game that started as inspired by a mod to Warcraft 3. Now becoming a franchise that is mega millions worth of dollars. The newest League final tournament, their big tournament was viewed by over 73 million people.
Oh my!
So it's a big game. Those are large numbers to be pulling.
Well, it's crazy too because like again, it's all these different games all at once. Whereas like even something like something as big as Halo, like they've gone more like multimedia now, but it took them a while to get there.
Yeah,
definitely for a long time.
Whereas League just feels like just like a shotgun approach, just all at once.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. All right. Not much else to talk about in news aside from various game releases. We have the new Pokemon. I say new Pokemon, but they are remakes of the old games.
New.
Massive air quotes.
Massive air quotes.
Gigantic air quotes.
See, this is
New
the thing that you'd be
Pokemon
poking my
games.
bear about now. Because this is a direct assault on the nostalgia of my childhood.
Hey, supposedly these are good remakes of the games, but the issue is that they are just remakes of the games.
They don't add like anything new.
Aside from the underground stuff, they also don't include a lot of the fixes that were made in the Platinum. Platinum.
Was it Platinum? Yeah, it was Platinum.
Yeah,
they don't add anything.
Yeah. They don't have the Platinum decks, and they
also don't look entirely different from Sword and Shield. If I'm being honest,
you don't. They took away. They took away the entire post game. There's no Battle Frontier.
Yeah. There's no Battle Frontier anymore. Yeah,
you have nothing to do after defeating the League.
It is so disappointing.
That are helping with a future Ace Combat game. I'm going to die.
Well, maybe Pokemon will see a revival. By revival, Pokemon doesn't need a revival. It's doing fine. Just financially. I think anyone who grew up with Pokemon has come to be disappointed with their handling of the franchise. Would you say that it needs
not an actual revival, but like a spiritual revival? I think is a good
I think it just needs to be modernized. I don't think you need to change anything major. You just need to add quality of life.
If you're looking for what you expect a Pokemon game to be, because it as a franchise has not evolved at all.
No.
Haha, pun intended, because Pokemon. Play Monster Hunter.
Yeah, play Monster Hunter Stories.
Monster Hunter Stories.
Yeah. It is legitimately the best Pokemon game to have come out in recent memory.
Or if you don't want to spend money, there's so many fan-made like ROM hacks and stuff that just.
Plus Temtem. Temtem is better than a lot of Pokemon. There's
Temtem is better than Sword and Shield, I would say. If you don't feel like if you feel like grinding, it's better than Sword and Shield.
Then there's also Shin Megami Tensei. If you want your dark Pokemon with demons, that's also a
true original Pokemon. You got your Dragon Quest.
There's plenty of monsters. There's plenty of underground or cult hit Digimon games.
Yeah, the Digimon games are also very good. Some of them are
I've
great.
Heard that they're fantastic.
Cyber Sleuth is legitimately very fun, and you can get the whole collection of 3 games very easily on most platforms now. So hey, you got your Digimon fix if you don't want to play Pokemon. Yeah, let's move on. I think we're done with Pokemon for the time being.
Forever.
That's what I like to hear.
Forever.
We did not talk about something relatively neat that happened recently as well. A few episodes ago, Animal Crossing got its major DLC revival. And I think we just didn't mention it because it was one of the episodes where we were doing a gimmick thing. So, gimmick thing. Look, I have to use wrestling terminology.
I love how just like I don't care.
It's not. It's wrestling terminology. We were doing the gimmick episode. You know,
who's the heel in Animal Crossing besides Tom Nook?
Absolutely, Pietro. 100% Pietro the Clown. He is the heel of Animal Crossing. So, yeah, Animal Crossing update came out, and I think this kind of silenced a lot of the people that were saying Animal Crossing wasn't going to get any updates, because now a lot of the things that it was missing are there. And it's got some cool stuff.
Between furniture.
Squeeze between furniture. There's DLC.
You can hang things on your ceiling.
There's lots of new items. You got your gyroids back. You got your Brewster Cafe.
What?
You got the cafe. You have a cafe now.
The gyroids, they're the little like rocket-looking men that you collect to place around your Animal Crossing island. They were very iconic in the GameCube days, but then just kind of vanished from some of the games and then have sporadically appeared. But it was disappointing that New Horizons did not have them. Now it does. So I'm vindicated. All right. With that, it's time to move on to our proper episode. We have a couple of games that we've all been playing. I think we're gonna get Halo out of the way.
Sure, we should do that because then we might not have any time for any
We're
of the
gonna
other
be spending the
games.
entire rest of the podcast on this one. All right, getting it out of the way.
We might want to
yeah,
get the
right.
other. I feel like we have a lot to say.
I know
At
we
least
have a lot
I
to
have
say.
a lot to say.
We're gonna go through the Halo stuff because the review stuff might be better suited to talk about when we go through Battlefield.
Yeah.
Because I would like to ask you, what do you all think 2042's critical review score is at right now?
Oh, I know what
I
it
know
is.
what it is at now. Yeah,
It's at a
It's-
unless it
73.
changed. Yeah,
That's-
73.
It's
That's
too high.
Which
that's
I-
obscenely
way too high.
high.
This is
I was gonna
this is-
guess 40.
This is absolutely like super pessimistic tinfoil hat garbage that's about to spew from my mouth. But I mean, Bobby Kodak's swimming in it at this point, so you should all be used to it by now. I like it's just so many things that are like happening now is like so obviously like you paid this person off. Like why is and we'll get to this when we get to the future episode, but why is Cyberpunk in the running for best RPG of the year? It's not even a contender, but it's there. So I'm sure CD Projekt Red used their Polish money to get their game in, and I feel like EA, because even like YouTubers and like Critical and stuff, like you watch the videos of him playing the games, and he's like, this isn't super good. This is like super weird. This is so broken. All these things are like wrong. Not even like broken, but bad design. And I'm almost done, Alex. And then like you see his moist meter review for it, and then he gives it like a middling, pretty high one because he had a sponsored EA video.
Well,
like,
the crazy part to me.
Oh, Alex was waiting in the wings. Let's bring Alex in.
He was waiting. I'm sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
I don't. Are they somehow discounting gameplay and just focusing on story for the RP?
We'll get to
I don't
the
know.
RPG discussion next 2 weeks from now when we're doing our game awards pre-show. But you know, because we're starting the review discussion, we're just going to go into the review discussion then. I do want to point out one thing, because the review process for the Game Awards is the selection process for the Game Awards is relatively known. We know they're not paid off by companies. So I don't want to put that out of people's minds, but there's also the caveat of it's all these developer groups like IGN, you have Easy Allies and whatnot, and they all have their own criteria for picking what games they do to be nominated and whatnot. And it's mostly a popularity contest between these massive review publications, and of course it's going to be a lot of games that they probably don't want to burn bridges with developers and stuff like that. It's going to influence decision making far more than finances are going to. Of like, they need to look at it and be like, okay, well, if we're talking about best shooter, and there's a Battlefield game that came out and a Call of Duty game that came out, we probably should.
So
there's gonna be another one next year.
I need my CD Projekt Red jacket and swag bag for their next game. You don't understand.
So it's like a reverse payoff situation then. The news.
I mean, this is all like speculation,
the,
right? Because we don't know, but we know that the Game Awards are not paid off by the people are not paid to get nominated at the Game Awards, but they do have developer sponsors that pay for the show to be done. So it's the kind of thing where like it isn't directly done, and I'm sure Jeff Keighley is probably like, I think Jeff Keighley is too precious.
Probably.
To where I would see if something like this is happening, I think Jeff Keighley's just excited the entire time.
Either that or he's just I guess at this point, and I've gone over this before, where I just think he's just become a sad, jaded individual that puts a smile on for the Game Awards and then is just depressed for the rest of the year. So like, it just feels like he's just like, well, at least I get to do my show again, and then like 2 hours of it will be Amazon ads.
They put him into a box off stage.
They put him in the red cube that he was in last year, like whatever the hell that weird, horrible digital
At least they get an
was.
awesome pair of kicks from our budget.
That's all he gets to eat, Wyatt. He has to eat those shoes after he's done wearing them on the
That's
screen.
why he gets new shoes every time, because he doesn't have them anymore.
Oh no. I do. I'm curious to see what the Game Awards this year is going to look like, because I think there were especially a few scenarios last year, which is what I wanted to get in with the review discussion, because a lot of it came down to us talking about Last of Us Part 2 and why games like Hades tend to not win a lot of awards, especially in Game of the Year, even though they are like almost universally agreed to be some of the best games of that year. And I think that this has come down to a disconnect between what reviewers think they are doing and what the audience wants from reviewers. Because I think, especially looking at stuff like the Battlefield 2042 review, reviewers seem to look at themselves like food critics now. Where they kind of count different genres as different things. And then when you get a certain thing like a Last of Us, which might have a very heavy narrative and whatnot, and a lot of visual elements, but not a lot of like innovations in game and other bits of game design, and may not stand up as well when you put it next to something like Hades, they just don't go, oh, well, we're not going to compare these two, right? We're not going to compare like the value proposition of these games. We're not going to review them as products. We're going to review them as art pieces. And we've hit the level of art critics being game critics now.
Oh, Lord.
And I think people that spend $60 on games don't want it reviewed like it's a piece of art.
No, if you're buying a Call of Duty game, you do not care. You do not care if it's art or not. You truly could not care less.
I think there's like definitely room to have both, because I feel like it is useful to have both lenses of like viewing it as a $60 product and viewing it as an art piece.
Exactly, but reviewers should like say that, right? Like that is a thing where you need to look at what you're writing and be like, okay, from a artistic perspective, if you're someone that really enjoys like artsy games that are trying something very different, but may not always succeed, this might be for you, right? Or you can go and say, okay, this game's going to have a lot of content for your bang for your buck. You know, there's ways to address that in a review that have been done before by plenty of reviewers, but I think it often comes up when a highly anticipated game, and I keep using Last of Us as an example because I think that is like the perfect example of this situation happening. To where a game comes out and people are like, okay, it's the Oscars, right? It's the Oscars of video games. We're going to look at the super kind of controversially received piece of media, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to ride the high of having just experienced this like conclusion to this long-term storytelling arc, even if it may not have been what people thought it would be or what the trailers promised. We're now in a situation where we can't review this as a game. We have to review it as an experience, right? Except that doesn't work when you have to look at it from a value perspective and compare it against other things. You get that situation where you're looking at The Last of Us Part 2 is an incredibly polarizing game, and for a lot of good reasons in both directions, right? Like we did multiple podcasts about The Last of Us Part 2.
We had a lot
quite good. We had a lot to say. And we did talk about the review stuff at length, but I think it really is a situation of you have to go in with a specific lens when you're reviewing something and make sure that you're staying true to that and not getting swept up in the kind of artsy, I get high on the idea of I am now an art critic reviewing art, right? And I'm going to put out this artsy review of this art and not judge it based on what it is and kind of judge it based on what I think it is. In a different way. It's just very disingenuous, I think.
Because ultimately, it's the same thing like with like movies and everything. It's like not every single. If you go into watching a movie thinking that it's every single one is going to like change your life, something that every single one is going to be like a Blade Runner 2049. I mixed up with 2077 and everything. Like just any and like super emotional thing. Yeah. If like. You can't go into something like a Battlefield or a COD and expect it's going to change your life or whatever. And I think that's probably also where that comes from. When it's like, oh, it's just shoot game. Well, it's a game and you can shoot in it, so I guess it can't be that bad. So I guess I'll give it an 80 on my review, and then that'll sway the average higher on the Metacritic. So it's.
And that's where I specifically wanted to bring up Battlefield 2042, because I think that happened a lot with 2042 reviews, where there are a lot of reviews by people that only played that like 10-hour window and have not played a lot of other Battlefield games or are not familiar with what people really want from them, and run into the issue of we're now reviewing this as a like chaotic sandbox that isn't the kind of like tactical sandbox that Battlefield players tend to want.
Yeah.
So you run into that issue where this game might be offering an experience that is fun, but fun for a different group of people and not the primary audience, right?
I say this every single time I talk about Battlefield. It's the difference between organized and unorganized chaos. It's a very
Yeah.
it seems like not a huge difference, but when it comes to Battlefield, it makes all the difference in the world what kind of like experience you're gonna get. And so for people who don't care, it's like, oh, we're just gonna drive ATVs everywhere with explosives and everything's gonna blow up and it's gonna be this crazy fireworks show. That's fine. But if you wanted a little bit more direction, like more of a traditional Battlefield game, it really doesn't have that. And that's the big difference.
Which is like a bigger negative, even because it's not just that like, oh, it's just, well, I guess Battlefield was bad this year, I'll go play something else. It's like controlled chaos with a large player count is not very easy to do.
Yeah.
And Battlefield was the franchise that like had it down, like even in 5, like that aspect of it was pretty like consistent
solid.
with the maps and the design for that sort of thing.
There was
And
still
when you lose
direction
that,
to what you were doing.
it's yeah,
And you could
exactly.
tell that the game was designed around that, right? Like you could play a match and know that the game was designed to play like this, and you're feeling like you have a handle on what the developers were thinking, and you understand the kind of flow of the game. Whereas like from 2042, especially that test they did, the beta run, it does not have that. It kind of lacks that sense of cohesiveness that brings it together. And I think if you're reviewing a game, that's hard to find, but that's why you have different people review different games. You have people that are familiar with a franchise review games from that franchise because they're going to know what is good and what doesn't work. It's the same reason when you have like a dedicated racing game guy or a dedicated fighting game guy, because in those types of games, a very small difference can lead to like a horrible experience, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a key thing of like, I remember playing early this week, I was playing a game called Resonance of Fate. Resonance of Fate is a JRPG from 2010. It is one of the most wild gameplay experiences I have ever had.
I've heard.
I saw you stream it.
Yeah, I showed Alex and Wyatt.
It's the most insane thing.
It is. If I was to rate the gameplay of that game, almost flawless, like 9 out of 10. They missed the mark a little bit because some things are just outside of the actual gameplay, just make it so hard to understand, to where you don't know what's going on until you like basically read the book of a tutorial and do all the tutorial fights, which are optional and can be missed. Because you could accidentally, like I did, you could accidentally start a fight before you find those, and not have any clue what you're doing and die instantly, which I did.
When you were streaming, you seemed to be doing good.
Yeah, because I went and did the tutorials. So I understood vaguely what was happening. But that game has another major issue. The gameplay can be really fun, and there's some fun like strategy, Euro game style building stuff on hex tiles, but the story is one of the most incomprehensible messes I have ever witnessed.
And we live in a world of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
This is like they looked at Kingdom Hearts and were like, we're gonna do the Kingdom Hearts cutscenes where they're licking the ice cream, except we're not gonna have any of the plot explanation that ever happens outside of that. So what happens is once a chapter or twice a chapter, you get a vignette of the 3 main characters interacting that doesn't further the plot at all. And all it is like, oh, there's one, oh, look, they did the girl's makeup and it looks super weird. Right?
Wacky,
it's like
crazy slice of life.
In between absolute bloody massacres, they're going out to buy groceries.
There's like a bit where they go to a cafe and there's just some bizarre... You can tell they watched Evangelion and we're like, we want to use Evangelion camera angles. But the entire dialogue of the cutscene basically consists of, hey, look at those kids. They doing well? Yeah, they're doing well. All right, have a good day. Bye.
Oh, hi, doggy.
It's awful.
Half a dozen red roses, please.
It's why I think it's the most like there are plenty of games that are like a 7 out of 10, right? This is like a 5 out of 10, where there's one element of the game that is extremely fun and good if you like that, and then everything else is just a nightmare.
Awesome.
But I feel like that's the kind of thing that reviews need to point out, right? You got to be like, this one element of the game might make it worth playing for some people, but the rest of it is just a nightmare. So I think we saw that with Cyberpunk, and
that was Biomutant for me earlier this year. They had 1 or 2 really cool things that I liked, and then everything else was just a complete and utter disaster.
Incomprehensible.
Little Rat Man. Plot.
That's not the kind of thing that you can get from like spending the same amount of proportional time that you would like reviewing a food. Like you eat it and then you get the experience. Wow, good. Or like you watch the movie and it was like 2 hours long or something. Wow, okay, that I saw the movie. With a game, and specifically in the case of like like in a super long game like a JRPG, or like something that's going to expect a lot of time from you like Battlefield's multiplayer. 10 hours, especially when it's super guided, like, okay, 4 hours here, 4 hours here, and 2 hours in the game mode that everybody's going to like after we launch the game. That's not going to cut it for reviewing properly, because you're just not going to get enough of a taste of the game. And that's the thing, is that so many reviewers, like you were saying, Ryan, like they just don't, they're doing it to review the game. They're not going to play the game after they do that 10-hour review period ever, because they're just going to play the other games that they like to
Or
play.
if they
after that.
do know they're going to play the game after the 10-hour review period, it's like a 9 out of 10 instantly, right?
It's yeah.
Um,
Which is like, it's not to say that people who don't play shooter games should review shooter games. Like only people who play fighters should review fighting games. Like, no, it's just like, make sure that you've played a long enough time in the game to get an actual sense for what the game is like
Yeah.
before you review it, which is impossible to ask.
Or
because
just
they
do some
gotta get the
research,
reviews
right?
out before it
Like,
comes
just do
out.
some
Yeah,
research
yeah.
into knowing what people like about that genre, so that you recognize. I think the famous, what was it, Cuphead IGN
Yeah, the
video,
tutorial.
yeah, it shows exactly
Oh my
that problem of like,
Didn't they just release like gameplay of like Halo Infinite's campaign? And they were like, who's playing? Are they playing with their feet? What's going on?"
yeah, and it's the kind of thing where maybe look at that and be like, hey, if I'm spending 5 minutes trying to do a jump that the tutorial tells me how to do exactly,
Yeah.
maybe take a moment and either have someone else do it or question why you're in this position and maybe think, read the things and do the things properly, right? It's the sort of thing you got to be open-minded to it, because if you get stuck in the mindset of, oh, this game sucks and it's not working like I expect it to, now you've got a problem, right? Because if you go play Resonance of Fate and expect it to work like a JRPG, you're in for a shock.
Yeah, to say the least.
So you have to go in with a mindset of, I am going to try this thing and figure out how it works, and if it's good, then I'll like it. If it's not good, I'll tell you why it's not good, right? You got to analyze things and actually be able to tell, okay, this is the part that isn't good, right?
Well, the other thing to keep in mind too, because we've been comparing game reviews to like movie reviews or food reviews. The thing is that compared to those two, I mean, it depends on where you go, on which restaurant you go to, but compared to those two things, video games is becoming more and more of like a luxury hobby. It's becoming so expensive that reviews are almost weighted more in a way, because there's so much more of an investment in a video game now than if you go to a movie for $15 and then you get the whole experience in 2 hours
Yeah.
or whatever, and then you go home. Here it's like, you're gonna, not only are you gonna be spending way more money, you're gonna be spending like 5-6 times the amount of money you would on one movie ticket. You're also spending more like time as well as money just
easily
invested
5
in that
times the
thing.
time.
And,
Yeah.
and I feel like I feel like a lot of like game reviews kind of failed to take
Acknowledge
that
it.
into account. Yeah.
Mhm.
With shorter like narrative experiences. Like if you compared Guardians of the Galaxy, a review of that compared to a review of Battlefield, it's so different, because one of them is like, you play through the campaign, that's the game. There's no end game.
Maybe you
there's
play
no
through it a second
multiplayer
time, but like you're not
to
going to
get
be
different answers, or to
you're,
get
you're
different
still
results.
only going to have like a limited amount of fun with that game, right?
Whereas Battlefield, that's meant to be played over and over and over again, hopefully a little bit every day for the next couple of years. It has to be reviewed very differently. You have to go into that review with a very different mindset, and I feel like that isn't always done.
Yeah. I think that especially reveals the weakness with that like 10-hour development window that Battlefield did and other multiplayer games have had to do, and it's hard to say to not do that, because you obviously have to have a way to guarantee that the reviewers can get games. And especially in a game that has such high player counts as Battlefield, you have the issue where you can't really have a pre-release review state unless you do something like early access, which they have been doing for a long time, or you just don't let reviews come out until the game is out because they haven't played the multiplayer, right? So there's a lot of pitfalls with that can happen, and it's hard to say there's a definitive answer to what you should do in that situation. But I think the way that they have been handling it is not the correct way. And I don't know if I would put that on DICE, because like DICE offering the review period windows to do those like 10-hour sessions is probably a good thing, because that means you can guaranteed get some time in before the game launches to know what to expect. But I feel like there should be some onus on the reviewers to not put their review out based solely on that, right?
That's impressions worthy content, not a full review. Like 10 hours and then calling your video of that 10 hours like an impressions of that makes way more sense, because realistically, you as crazy
Or
as it
review in
sounds,
progress. I want to actually give
you
IGN some credit here, because they do review in progresses in that situation.
Yeah, which is basically their equivalent of like, oh, here's my first impressions, my full review is coming soon.
Yeah.
It's a very similar practice, but I do like that we're starting to see that distinction more.
Yeah,
for sure.
I just feel like it's an issue that gets exacerbated so much when you look at like indie and AAA as well. It feels like indie games are sometimes put up against standards that are far higher than they should be, or far lower. So I think indie opens up its own can of worms with reviews, and especially like the availability of reviews for those games. We'll probably talk about that at a separate time though, because we are already running well into our time, and we also want to talk about games that we've played this week. Namely, for three of us,
we played this week.
Actually, all four of us have played some Halo. But Alex, before we take over the podcast with Halo-ness, would you like to bring up something aside from Halo that you've been playing?
Is this something that I've talked to you about before?
No, whatever you've been doing this week. It's the potluck episode, Alex. What have you been doing?
The potluck.
So I've been indulging some more into Game Pass. I'm getting down with the sickness, as the kids say nowadays.
Down with the passness.
And what was the most? I just finished this game today. Started it yesterday. It's not too long. It wasn't, like Wyatt putting in more than 2 days of time into it.
That's it.
I just recently finished playing XO1.
Ooh, I want to download that.
Which is a very fun physics, I guess, kind of.
Oh, was that the one with the orb?
Yeah,
orb. Open world pinball.
Yes,
without
that
the
game
bumpers,
is
it's
a lot of fun.
Yeah, you play as an orb. That's, I think they call it paracausal. I don't want to get too into like somewhat plot spoiler thingies. You play an orb that you can manipulate the relative gravity of. Like you can click in the mouse button to increase gravity 10 times and shoot yourself down, so you can like hopefully catch a sick curve and fly up some more. And there's just watching yourself twirl through the air is so fun, and they have wonderful visuals of showing you how much power you have stored up by having the ball be like slightly translucent, having this deep orange glow into it that grows. It's so beautiful. The entire game is so beautiful, and you're exploring these really cool like planets and things like that. And you can also turn into a disc or a frisbee and fly.
Of course.
That's been my
glide.
number one dream. My entire life is to be turned into a frisbee.
One of my absolute favorite things to do, because I suck at being outdoors and I was never able to pull this off whenever I'm near a body of water, is like skipping rocks. You can skip yourself as a frisbee on the water, and it feels so satisfying.
Cool.
It's a wonderfully atmospheric game.
Yeah, this has been on my list ever since I saw the preview trailer for it. That game has been on my list to try out. How long did it end up running you, Alex? A couple hours? Longer than that?
No, it will a couple. It was almost 2 hours. I think it was.
So pretty short.
Hour 53 minutes.
Yeah. So like probably around the journey length of time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. This is the kind of game that I think Games Pass is perfect for. Because you get to having a 2-hour runtime for a game is a hard ask for a lot of people. I think especially
a difficult game to price,
especially with when it's under 2 hours. If it was on Steam, you'd probably
people could refund
if you paid for it, then people would probably refund it, and you'd get the money that you worked hard for, making the game taken away from you.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that I think was definitely will thrive on Game Pass, where you have that kind of captive audience who isn't spending money specifically on just your project, so they might feel a lot more open to just trying these weird new experiences, which I think is really, really fun. So I cannot wait to install that and try it out probably next weekend. It seems like a good weekend game. All right. We're ready to move on to the giant conglomerate of all four of us talking about Halo. So, look, I've been playing 2 games this week, Resonance of Fate and Halo. So, I already talked about Resonance of Fate. We're going to go into Halo. It's basically the same game. What I do want to do before we open up this giant discussion floor is talk about how much Halo and exposure to Halo have we all had. Because I know Alex, I think, has the least of all of us. Is this the first Halo game you've played, Alex?
This is the first Halo game I've played.
Okay.
Well,
that statement was said as if there was more to it.
Played as in, I guess, like somewhat had a copy of to myself that wasn't maybe an hour on a friend's.
Yeah, so like played on your
friend's
own.
house and playing 3 or something.
Yeah, understood. But you have played a lot of Destiny, right?
That I have. That I'm the Destiny.
Dirty call out, right? Just exposing him.
I'm the Destiny person in this.
Hey, I said
podcast.
Destiny 1, not Destiny 2. So.
Oh.
But you have some experience
better
with
time than me.
Bungie style shooters. Even though this is 343 now, but still feels kind of Bungie-ish.
Which is good.
All right. On my level, I don't know. I grew up playing Halo. I never played too much multiplayer aside from Reach, but was always into the campaigns. How about Brett and Wyatt?
Okay. So when I was a kid, the first thing that I got into was Star Wars after my dad took out his old VHS tapes, and the second thing I got into was Halo because I saw a guy in elementary school who had Master Chief on a T-shirt, and I thought it looked so sick. And I walked up to him to ask him what it was from, and I can't say the words that he said back to me on Twitch. But I thought it was so cool that I kept like I was that total nerd that I kept like filling up all my sketchbooks with like Master Chief, and I had no idea who he was yet. And then I went over to one of my friend's house one day. We played Halo 3 for the first time. And I was like, oh my god, that's him.
Brent, I thought for a
then,
while I thought you were talking like Halo 1, Halo 2 timeline, and then the words Halo 3 came out of your mouth.
No, yeah, because this is because I think because it was 2007, so it would have come out not too long before that.
Right.
And then because I don't have an Xbox at this point. I have a Wii, and my parents don't want to get me an Xbox because the things that lie beyond Wii Sports Bob are too terrifying, and I must stay
too
in the
unnatural
safety of
for
the
a
Wii.
child's eyes.
So I did the cool thing, and I got a laptop, and I got Halo 1 and Halo 2 for PC instead. And I like absolutely fell in love. Campaign, multiplayer, super like broken servers made to make like race game modes and everything. This it 5 coming out and being what it was like a huge betrayal because this is something that I was a fan for my entire life. And I've always been like a huge fan of all the stories and all the things that they've told. And so for a while after 5 I was just like, well, that's it. There can't possibly be any hope left. I mean, they ruined it, and now it's stuck with these clowns, these fools.
Yeah. All right, Wyatt.
Yeah, no.
Can you
Halo.
top that?
Played a lot of Halo 2 and 3 at like friends' houses, that kind of thing. Sometimes my brother's friends would bring an Xbox over and we'd play Halo 2 or 3, depending on which friend and which day it was. And then I remember when my brother and we got an Xbox 360 for Christmas one year, and my parents did this funny thing. They both know we wanted ODST, which was the newest at the time. And they're like, "Hey, we got you this other game," and we're like, "Oh, cool, thanks." And then, but we were trying to be polite. We were trying to hide our like disappointment because we wanted Halo ODST. And then when we set up the Xbox, we popped open the disc tray, and ODST was in the disc tray. They pulled a
Based.
180 on us. It was
Oh.
awesome. It was
Nice.
awesome. And then we discovered that you shouldn't carry around a 360 with a disc in it because it scratches
Nope.
it. So we had to get a new disc. But no, my brother and I freaked out. We played a bunch of like ODST Firefight. And then ever since then we would gathered the other Halo games so we could play them ourselves. Played a bunch of 3 multiplayer. Played a bunch of 4 multiplayer. I had played whatever campaign I could get my hands on. And then around the time Halo 5 came out, I liked it, but a lot of my friends didn't want to play it with me because it was Halo 5. And then I feel like my love of the franchise was invigorated when I finally got Master Chief Collection and just tore through all the games in like a couple of days, all the campaigns. And yeah. So I'd say I'm a pretty big. I've read a book or two.
The books are so good, dude.
I have read a book or two as well.
I have like a stack of them behind.
The one that sticks out to me was Cole Protocol. I really liked Cole Protocol. That one was solid.
See, I think I read one of the bad books. It was one of the one with pillars in the name that wasn't well received.
I need to watch.
Wasn't so good, but it was
a newer one.
No, it was an older one because I was like 12.
Oh.
So.
I need to watch the Brian David Gilbert video.
That's a fun video.
It is very good.
That's a really fun video. I did watch some of the Halo TV stuff like that. What was it called?
Fall of Reach, I think it was.
Fall of Reach,
like
yeah. They had that like
Reach on it,
yeah, they had that like weird kind of like animated thing that was about
yeah.
Well, there was that, but there was also the one that was just about like Blue Team and like them training to be Spartans and stuff like that. It was like an animated movie.
Like I watched like 10, 13 seasons of Red versus Blue. So
that's
I've
what
seen a bunch of Red versus Blue. I was working up to that. I was
Mhm.
working up to that. Yeah, no, I love Halo. I kind of feel like it's one of those things. Ever since I started playing games, it's always kind of been there. Whenever I wanted to play it.
Yep.
So
I just wanted to establish that from everyone aside from Alex, this is not going to be a very objective review. We just talked about reviews, and I would put our little warning stamp here of we are all Halo marks, and so we are going to talk about Halo probably in a lot of positive ways that maybe not everyone agrees with.
I even changed my lights to green.
And I looked back at my Xbox account achievements and realized I have undersold. It turns out I played a lot of Halo 3 multiplayer as well and hit max rank and reach.
There you go.
I played more of that
max
game.
Rank and reach is
I know.
Come to me if you want those unbiased facts.
So remember that
folks.
Recon and the Recon and Evo helmets in Reach were like the goals. So.
Yeah.
And then I've already played as much as you've played Halo 3 in your entire lifespan in less than a week. So it's great.
Wyatt, that's not something to brag about.
I'm not saying I am. I'm just trying to come to terms with the harsh reality of the fact that I have no life.
The opposite end of us being mostly very big Halo fans is that here's the thing: if this wasn't very good, we would be extremely harsh on it.
Oh yeah, no, you would bring out full like this would be like if they released a terrible 14 expansion that destroyed the game for me, and I just trashed Final Fantasy.
If this was on the same level of Battlefield 2042, I'd be just as pissed. Like that's another franchise.
You'd probably be more pissed, I think.
I probably. They messed up Battlefield. I'm gonna get angry. You mess up Halo, I'm gonna get angry.
Especially if you mess up the first Halo in 7 years at this point?
Oh wow,
6 years, I think.
A while ago.
Wasn't 5 2015?
5 was 2015. Yeah,
6 years, long time. But I think we've yet to mention we are still technically playing Halo Infinite before the official release date of the campaign.
Yes,
because they shadow dropped it this week.
Insane.
So. Major props, first of all, to have that confidence, and especially to the team. Supposedly, I heard the story from someone. I don't know how true it is, but I wouldn't be surprised, knowing the games industry, that the team had to come in to fix a last-minute bug on the weekend to hit the Monday launch date that they wanted to do because they found out about it like last minute on Friday, and everyone came back in to, at least that could work on that, came back in to fix it for one day on the weekend just to make sure that the game would get out.
That's
And-
dedication.
And
Yeah.
that's why I don't
crap.
want to be a programmer.
I mean, hey, like as long as that isn't something that happens super often, especially if it's the team was okay with it to make sure they hit that special
Yeah.
mark they wanted to do, it's all right. But if that's like a repeated thing, it's bad. But
Yeah.
one off of like, oh no, we found this last minute thing that's gonna like tank if we launch it. We need to get this fixed, and we got to hit
like,
that
you
Monday
know what?
deadline.
I'd like to know what the bug was.
So would I.
Any other day and any other year, it would have been like, okay, we can make the Xbox conference be like, okay, and the Halo multiplayer is dropping in 2 days, but it's literally 20 years to the day that Halo 1
Yeah.
came out. You
Oh, wow.
cannot
That
miss
was
that.
the big
There's
reason.
literally no way. You can't miss it. And then like even on all like the subreddits and everything, people are saying like, oh, they found a bug with something, and it's not. They just lose all hope immediately because it's not happening anymore. And they were just planting seeds of doubt just everywhere. And I can't. In what universe are we in that a game can come out the same year that both of its iconic competitors release a new one and just wipe the floor with them? Like, I'm gonna be honest,
Yeah.
like neither Battlefield or COD even have like a stake in this fight right now.
And it's not even officially out yet.
The
Like,
full
fuck
game
it.
isn't even out yet, and they've completely
I mean, it's still beta. We're still in the beta.
obliterated. Oh my god, it's incredible, and like they've had things to fix. We'll get to it. It's not perfect, but the fact that they released it and the game itself works like 99% of the time,
And that
they're
we were
fixing
able to
issues.
play it on launch day, right? That's
Yes,
astounding. Is that we were able to group up and play it on launch day, right? Like that.
Mhm.
No day one patch so far.
No,
There have been patches, but
patches, but not day one to fix like no one
Not
can
to
log
fix
into
known
the server. Like
issues.
for a while, the servers were down because everybody was downloading the game that just got shadow dropped with no preload capability, pretty much.
yeah, and there was an issue with the Xbox app on PC not getting the update fast enough. So most people just went to Steam to download it instead because
Yep.
it wasn't on Xbox for like 4 hours or something after the official launch date. Even then,
Which
that's a
is-
minor issue.
hilarious.
It's very
anyway.
funny, but it's not a big issue because your progression is shared as long as you have that Microsoft account. So, yeah, it's been great fun so far. I want to give major props to 343 for listening to feedback really quickly and making sure that bugs are caught very quickly. I think there's been like 2 patches so far that have fixed
Two, yeah.
some minor to more major issues with progression and with some
in a much better state than it
unsatisfying things in the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do remember that we had a few matches the first, I think it was the second day that it came out, where we were playing matches and just like occasionally you'd hit this point where you just don't get anything for playing a match, and just none of your bars go up, and it was just sad. It's just kind of, you look at your stuff and go, that's a little sad.
The next day, what do you know? Surprise update. They fixed it. Now 1 bar always fills up.
Made it better. I wouldn't say
Made
they
it better.
They didn't fix it. They made it slightly better.
They made it more enjoyable than being bad.
Sounds like a company that listens to their players.
Hey,
I've always
Sounds very
said
343 like.
well, I don't know. I feel like they've been pretty
Oh,
good
yeah.
at post-launch support. Even if like even
they
if-
listen to the player
well,
base that's
even-
still
even if-
there. They just have had the issue of that
They-
player base
yeah.
leaves.
They did
Even
the
if-
Battlefield
Quickly.
2042 thing twice in a row, and now they're not doing that anymore. So this very un-343 like, considering that those 2 things before this were the only things that they did.
Yeah, 343 not had the best track record with good multiplayer ethics. It's probably a good way to put it. Or campaigns. So we obviously can't talk about the campaign yet because it's not out.
Mhm.
I hope,
we have
fingers
heard good
crossed.
things. We have heard good things from like early.
Every
previews
preview
of
that I've
it.
seen has been positive. Then again, every preview for Cyberpunk was positive. So something to keep in mind. I don't want us to get too hyped up before it comes out. I would rather be pleasantly surprised than let down. So
Hopefully, at least in this case, we're getting a small taste of what is to
we
come.
know the
whereas
gunplay
with
is going to be
Cyberpunk,
good. We know
Yeah. The
that
sandbox is
it
probably
works.
going to be very good.
Yeah.
If it's anything like the multiplayer sandbox, it's going to be very good.
But before we go into, I think the one negative set of things we're going to have to say is about the progression. So we're going to save that until after we go over the basic gameplay. I think especially for people like Alex who have not played every Halo game, because this is probably the most accessible one. It's on Game Pass, on PC and Xbox, so
it's free to
tons,
play.
and it's free everywhere.
About as many there are about as few barriers to entry as you could possibly get.
I mean, it broke the record for concurrent players on Steam. So, I mean, that is an impressive record. Because I think either Team Fortress or another Valve game, Counter-Strike maybe, has held that record for I think 10 years or something, and it finally got broken. So that's impressive. But yeah, I think base gameplay in this, especially the gun mechanics in this game, tend to work very well. There's a couple of standouts for both positive and negative, but I think in general everything feels good, aside from maybe just numbers tuning on certain things. But most of the weapons feel like they have a distinct, weapon balance.
Weapon balance is the big thing. There are not that many, but too many weapons that I'm passing up on just because I don't think they're very good. Like the Ravager comes to mind. The Stalker.
It's the worst gun in the game.
Ravager's the worst weapon in the game. The Stalker rifle comes to mind.
It's just a lot of the guns have this issue where they feel objectively worse to use than the basic pistol and assault rifle kit.
Like, are you gonna pick that pulse carbine over the BR? Never. Like, I can't think of a single situation where you would prefer that. To be honest, like at any range, any kind of engagement, just the BR is better. And I would say it's also more plentiful because it's on like almost every single map.
Yeah, there's a couple of weapons like that definitely feel undertuned. I think in general, gameplay feels great. The maps are very well made for the most part.
I don't think there's a single bad map in my opinion. There isn't a map where
Brett and I have specific issues with Bazaar.
Yeah, with Bazaar. But I think
whatever.
The most of the complaints that I have, mostly the more complaints that I have for the maps are like aside Bazaar, which I just dislike entirely.
Bazaar has bad line of sight, is what it feels like. I think that map specifically doesn't have the tuned line of sight that other maps have,
which is weird because it was a beta map.
Yeah,
like the last beta map. But there's just like some maps that work better on some modes. Like fragmentation doesn't work all that well on non-objective modes. It works really good for those because then those weird lanes in the middle get used all the time. And on like Slayer or something, it's just like really just amorphous. Blech.
What's the map with the giant turret in the middle? The big team battle map. I forget.
Deadlock, I think it is.
Deadlock. Yeah, Deadlock.
Deadlock on Total Control. That first zone, or like the
really
C zone at the bridge, is just a mess, and it's you usually stick in that one area for way too long. It gets to the point where or the whole game. It gets to the point where like if the enemy team takes it, you're like, oh, thank God.
But at the same time though, then they've gotten the momentum and they just don't lose it. Both the times that I've gotten past it, it's been my team wins and we just obliterate the other 2 rounds, or their team wins and they just obliterate us for the 2 rounds after like 10 minutes of fighting over it.
I haven't had that experience, but I could definitely see that.
It's
happening.
I've probably had different things happen before, but both of those happened like in a row last night when I was playing, and I was like, "This is very telling of what this map is like on this mode."
Yeah.
I mean,
that map is good for other things though. Like I think it's a great stockpile map. I think it's a great capture the flag map.
It's good on Slayer.
Yeah, capture the flag on that map is very, very fun.
That's my favorite map in the game. I think
it's got. I think especially for the big team maps, it's really nice that we have like that circular layout in a way that kind of works. Because none of the other big team maps have that kind of circular format. Yeah. That's usually what the quick play maps tend to have, is that circular rotation. So seeing that in big team is fun.
I've mentioned this before. The biggest issue I have with big team battle maps right now is that there aren't enough just like open areas where like vehicles can really shine. I think of things like Sand Trap. I think of Blood Gulch. Maps that have some rolling fields with nothing there. No hexagonal pillars. No
just giant rock for no reason.
There are a lot of walls in every map that are very easy to run into in a Warthog because the pathways are clearly meant for infantry, not for vehicles.
I have a hard time navigating the chopper sometimes, because sometimes and even the Warthog, sometimes they need really wide turns that you just can't really pull off with these trails.
If you bump into walls with the planes, can you damage them yourself?
If you're going fast enough.
Fast enough, yeah.
But not if you're slow.
Yeah, if you careen into a wall full force while boosting with a Banshee, you will explode and die. But if you just like tap it, I don't think it really does anything.
Yeah, it doesn't.
My next objective.
It's gotta bomb some people with the Banshee.
I think the map thing is kind of it's a little bit similar to the way that I feel about the weapons where they work in different cases, and that's a good thing for a lot of them. Where like the kind of classic what you'd think the range that a weapon would work in Halo is extremely emphasized here to cases where like the assault rifle is now very good. Finally, the pistol is back to being very good again, thank God. And like things like the battle rifle aren't super great like close up, but once you get to that mid range, it's like there are a few things that
It feels
you
like you have a lot more legitimate choices to make here, where based on the map, based on what you like playing, there are way more viable options, but also like they kind of encourage you to play in specific ways, right? So if you have like something I've actually ended up rolling with a lot is now that I understand how the cinder shot works. I
love that streak so much.
See, I hated it because I didn't realize that it seems like it activates after it ricochets.
Yes.
Not beforehand. So if you aim for people's feet and let it bounce, then it works really well. But the Streets map tends to have either a cinder shot or a rocket launcher in the center. And if you play super aggressive for that thing and grab it either first, second, or while people are running away from it because there's grenades everywhere, grab that thing, then just go on a rampage. You can play a loadout with that where, especially if you get the cinder shot because it can bounce around corners, you can, on the Stronghold game mode, start taking out entire groups of enemies without even being in their line of sight, which is super
getting
fun.
A dent.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So it just feels like there's so many cool loadouts available. Stuff like that, and the skewer is also really fun to use.
The skewer is probably my favorite new gun. The skewer is awesome.
That's where that's the first place where we're going to differ. That I see.
It is very hard to use, and considering that you have not played a Halo game and don't like first-person shooters, that is where I'm going to assume
I have
that
had someone
comes from.
I have had someone be AFK in front of me, almost point blank. I put the reticle not at their head because I'm horrible at hitting headshots. Dead center in their chest. It does not hit them.
You missed. You missed. I'm sorry.
I didn't move.
They didn't move. I don't know what to tell you. It's a one-shot kill when you hit their pinky toe, Alex.
You missed. So matter of fact. Oh my god. Oh my god.
the best case scenario there is maybe with server lag. Maybe with some weird server lag going on that someone wasn't in the place they were supposed to be.
The skewer does have an arc to it, so maybe
it is a relatively pronounced arc too. It is not like a you have to account for it.
Well, because how close to you were they?
I almost point blank, maybe a meter or two.
Yeah, then it must have been either server lag or you legitimately just missed.
Might have jerked the mouse to the side when you fired.
That's the thing is like it's not a rocket launcher. There's no splash damage. There's not a Spartan laser where the laser stays there a little bit. It's like if you don't hit them exactly at that like millisecond of point where the server is going to detect an impact, then you've missed, and now you have to spend 5 seconds reloading, and you're gonna.
The best way to describe the skewer is that they took the binary rifle and made it more difficult to get that one hit kill.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah, but also more satisfying because it's a giant impaling rod.
Yeah, that difficulty made it all the more satisfying, and I think it was super worth it.
Yeah,
that gun is so. That's the thing. It's like, it's super hard to use, and my God, do I miss most of the shots that I take with it. But when
you land a shot,
yes, when you swat that wasp out of the sky from across the map, you can't help but scream and get up and do a circle around the room. It's impossible.
Plus, it's one of the few guns in the game that like if you see someone with a skewer, you know that they are a threat.
Yes,
and like it has a big imposing look to it that you can immediately recognize it. It's like it and the gravity hammer. You see that and you know immediately. All right, this needs to go. This gotta go now.
Every time I've been killed by a
shit moment.
Every time I've been killed by a skewer, I've never seen them or it coming. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
No,
The big
see,
red,
that's the threat of it.
Sniper glare.
That's what makes
When
it so
they're zooming in at
scary.
you, they have a big sniper glare. All the
Sometimes you
anything with a
just don't
scope in this
know.
game does.
Sometimes you just
Also,
don't know there's a skewer in play until it's too late.
Also,
Yeah.
one of the leading reasons for why I hate first person shooters and my main jaded outlook on this, um, my situational awareness is on par with a 3-hour-old infant.
Oh, I see.
I mean, sometimes, especially in big
You
team
don't have
battle, that
object
is the fun of
permanence.
Halo.
In
is
video
not
games,
knowing what's going
object
on.
permanence is not a thing for this guy.
But yeah, I do think specifically the weapons that feel good feel really, really good.
Yeah.
The assault rifle, especially, it just feels like it's in such a good spot. The battle rifle feels excellent too. There are a
If you
few.
could give it a most improved award, it would go to the assault rifle.
The assault
Absolutely,
rifle,
yeah, my God.
the
assault
Mangler
rifle
is one of the better new
smacks.
guns.
Oh my God, Mangler's so fun.
Mangler, it's got that like Destiny hand cannon kind of satisfaction to it.
But it's
Yeah,
also got like a
it's
weird,
very-
interesting curve where it kind of arcs downwards. But if you hit someone with it, it does massive chunks of damage. But it's hard to land
Finally.
because it's a projectile.
Finally, in a Halo game, they have the things with the blades on them, and they say that they do more melee damage. They actually do now. You could
Yep.
shoot somebody with a Mangler once, and it doesn't matter if they still have shields up at all. If you shoot someone with the Mangler once and melee them with the Mangler, you kill them. Because the melee does so much damage that you don't have to break their shields in order to kill them. It's so awesome in close range.
And what you get a lot of the times too is even if there's a gun that you feel like needs to be balanced better. So like in my opinion, the Commando just feels really useless and kind of shoots pebbles at people at the moment. It's still a really fun weapon to just use. Sometimes
it just feels like because the
it's
Commando in
satisfying.
the I don't know what changed. It could be they changed the Commando. It could be they changed other weapons to be better. But the Commando compared to the test flights feels way more dinky and harder to use. And like I've at this point, because I've gotten multiple kill people with a Commando challenges where I have to use the Commando. So I've used it a lot, and whenever I use it, I constantly get in situations where I'm trying to shoot someone who's shooting at me with an assault rifle. I land nearly every shot, or I miss like 1 or 2 shots. And missing 1 or 2 shots with that gun is easier to do and a lot more punishing because it feels like you can't kill them in one clip then.
Yeah, you got a slower rate of fire and only 20 rounds, so...
Yeah.
So
I
and
would-
then
I
you
would
also
usually,
start
like-
with only 60 rounds total. So
Yeah.
you at most can basically get like 3 people down with that gun, unless you perfect headshot. But perfect headshotting you can't do easily because you need to like not keep on full auto. You got to tap your finger to keep accurate. So it just feels like that gun has been far more situational in a way that it feels like it kind of should just be an improvement on the assault rifle for finding it. So I don't know. I think there are a couple things you could do. Buffing the amount of rounds in the gun itself could be a good solution. But there's a lot of small problems with it that just feel not as satisfying.
I also feel like I don't really, out of all the weapons that they took out, I don't understand why they took out the plasma pistol because now there's 2 more guns that
The plasma pistol's there.
Yeah.
No, what I maybe I misspoke. I don't understand why it's there because the one useful part of the plasma pistol, which was EMPing vehicles, is now relegated to 2 other guns that just do it better.
I mean, the plasma pistol, if you charge it now, has insane tracking, like
It's
way
but it's
better.
still you're giving that capability to one gun that is way better, and one gun that is so situational that I just avoid it like the plague, which is the disruptor. Which I've seen the video of the guy like actually finding a group of people and chaining the electricity, and then they all get killed. But it's like it's never going to
No one
happen
groups up enough.
ever. No one
No one
groups up
groups
enough
up.
unless it's like super.
I have had that happen
situational.
once or twice in an
Or-
oddball
or-
game where
Or
a
you're doing
disruptor was fatal.
control or
Yeah, the objective control modes have had opportunities for that, especially in quick play where people are grouped up a lot more. I think that they tend to work well, but it does feel weak compared to your normal sidearm sometimes.
It's not useful outside of that situation. So if it's on another map and it's like Slay or something, it's like, well, I guess I'll go grab the other thing instead.
And again, it's like the shock rifle is like a legitimately good weapon. Like if you know what to do with it, the shock rifle is really good. So you have 2 guns now that can EMP vehicles, which leaves the plasma pistol just feeling a lot less useful than it was before.
Yeah,
So it's like,
I've
of all
found the
weapons-
plasma pistol
of all the
way more
weapons you
useful on
removed-
regular infantry than vehicles this time. It feels really good as you can charge it behind cover, pop out, shoot the round off, break someone's shields, and swap to a weapon that's better at range, and then headshot.
That's my problem though, is that it basically requires the other weapon to make it useful.
Well, that's a niche, right? That's a niche for it to fill. It doesn't need to be a gun for every situation, because I think there's a few guns like that. There's a Disruptor is like that too, where it kind of fills that role of, if I need to swap to this, I'm going to have to probably swap to something else or get in melee to kill someone, but I might have a really quick way to get through their shields and open them up, especially if you're at an angle where they can't see you. Sometimes having that like very quick shield burst is really, really nice. So, I don't know. I've found situations where that is more useful.
Let me put it this way. In my opinion, it's less useful than it was because it doesn't have that feature and it's been relegated to other guns. Whereas you could have kept something like the shotgun instead of like the traditional shotgun instead of the plasma pistol, and it would have been a more useful. It would have rounded out the kit better, because as it stands right now, there's no good shotgun. Like, I mean, there's no good like shotgun.
The Bulldog is like cool.
It's not good,
but it feels dramatically less fun to use than the other shotgun.
There's this magic like range in between mid and close where
it's like what you imagine SMG range to be.
Yeah, if you imagine like SMG range, the Bulldog is actually very good at that specific range, but it doesn't do nearly enough damage when you're right up close to someone, and it was always a good like counter for the
because it seems like it always kills in 3 shots to me. I don't think I've ever killed someone in 2 shots with it.
3 or 4 shots. Yeah.
Whereas the old shotgun is like not mid range, but like slightly shorter or farther than close range. It's a 2-shot kill, and in close range, if you hit them in the head, it's a 1-shot kill.
It's just like square in the chest, which is what a shotgun should be in an FPS. That's just how.
But it had like a 5-foot range, right? So it was basically an energy sword. So.
It's the counter to the energy sword that if you're good with your aim, you don't get the lock on because you don't need it. But now the only counter to the energy sword is going back and killing the guy while he's not looking at you in your next life, because he will kill you no matter what he does. In that range.
And if you're good enough, you can use the repulsor and you can use dodge to into it.
If you have that.
But even that's very specific, and you have to be really you have to know your stuff to really pull that off properly.
This isn't going to count because of when the podcast comes out, but I can finally say it. You know what day it is, guys? It's Energy Sword Sunday.
It is Energy Sword Sunday. This is true. Which is to say, I don't think like this goes for pretty much every weapon in the whole game. I don't think the Energy Sword is overpowered. It's just the thing that's usually there to counter it isn't there. Yeah. Oh well, it's a power weapon. It should kill you in 1 shot. They shouldn't really change it.
Well, it also feels like this makes it really easy to, if you know someone has an energy sword, because the energy sword is now marked on a map when it spawns.
Yes.
So you know when someone has it on the map. You know when that threat is there. So as long as you play around knowing that someone has an energy sword and kind of stay away from corners and check them first, you can at least give yourself the opportunity to, like, especially with the buffed assault rifle. As long as you're far enough out of their melee range, you can take someone down easily with
while they're running at you.
An energy sword if they're just sprinting at you. Because
and again, you have the time. You can use equipment to bait out attacks, which will give you a good window.
But if you get an energy sword in the side, or don't notice them, or it's in the middle of a firefight, then it's a great weapon.
That's
or
how it works.
Or there's the gravity hammer, which is just maybe the funnest thing to use in the game.
It's so much fun.
And it has like an insane. Insane in a good way range. It has a much more threatening range now, where it doesn't insta kill you.
Got like the assault rifle level buff, in my opinion.
It did, yeah.
Talking about the gravity hammer, I've only encountered it once, and the one time was when I was asking you in the middle of the big team game, "What is this?" And then you picked it up, but I died before I got to see you use it. What does it do?
It basically turns someone into a black hole. When you hit someone with it, it makes an incredibly loud sound that's very satisfying. And if you're anywhere within like 10 feet, they explode. If they're within like 15 to 20 feet, it breaks their shields and knocks them away.
Ooh.
And if you can hit them again with it, they're dead. So
it sends them flying.
Yeah.
The thing in this game is that they gave it like they're allowing it to be like a really cool, super satisfying like.
It's rare now too. Weapon. Like it's not as available as it was before.
And it has like a super long windup, which again gives it that like harder to use its balance. But on the flip side, it makes it that much more satisfying because now you got like something that's difficult for a Spartan to lift up.
It feels like there's actual weight to it now.
A building.
It's got much more acceleration.
You can
It
tell the
does,
slight
yeah.
struggle in the wind up too, which just makes it feel
Mhm.
like it has more weight.
It's a
Yeah.
wind up and then it hits the top and then immediate slam, which is super. The animation work in the entire game is excellent, but
And the sound
Yeah.
for it is like legitimately terrifying if you're fighting it. Like it scares
Yeah,
you.
that little stupid
Oh.
squeak from 4, get that shit out of here. It's just an entire nuke going off now. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's an actual rocket going off. Take notes,
So-
Battlefield.
Yeah, really.
So we were talking about guns, then we were moving to melee. What do you guys think of the movement in it?
it
It's
feels very
amazing.
Halo, which is exactly what I
very Halo.
wanted. I think I've said this before, but my biggest concern was that the addition of a grappling hook in multiplayer would lead to them making the Titanfall movement decisions, which are fun and like great in the kind of games that support that, but Halo has never been that. And when they try to turn Halo into it, it just is an inherently different game that I personally just don't enjoy as much. I know Wyatt likes it better in some cases, but for me
exception.
personally, it's like the kind of thing where I enjoy that kind of gameplay, but I don't want it to be Halo because Halo's never had that identity, right? It's not the game I expect that from.
I'm so glad you mentioned the grappling hook. Because I will continue to boast about this until the day I die, or I somehow now become uninterested in Halo, which I don't think is going to happen. What have you gotten me into?
It gets its hooks in
Um,
you.
But
And it never leaves.
like it has a grappling hook in it, so it's a good video game.
I mean, the
Yeah.
grappling hook here is just balanced excellently.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
so I still have no idea what it looks like, so I'm always surprised when I get it
Yeah.
as a pickup. But when
Oh.
I get it, and when I got it in what will be a match that I will never be able to live up to, I just expended all of my beginner's luck in this one match, and I brought in my Destiny experience into this game in the best way possible. I was channeling my inner Titan, which is to say, you don't need guns to
All right,
win.
get along
Hey,
with it.
You don't
I
need guns in
I
Halo.
because I've as I was talking about with the skewer, I've just had a horrible time getting used to and finding the right or finding a way to get myself into the right situations to use a certain type of gun or things like that.
Yeah.
So I just opted for the fist and the elbow. And I was swinging around a map. I forget what it was called, but just Spider-Manning around a map with the grappling hook, and like going after one person after another, just being able to swoop right around them in the back, and then
Because you have the instant
one
back
hit
kill
them with the
now.
melee. And it's so fun. And I got 10 people like that in one life, and that is the most
Amazing.
I will ever be able to get. I will not even be able to
I mean,
kill
you've had your Halo
4
moment.
people in a life.
This
at
is how
any point in
everyone
the
gets into
future.
Halo. Is that they have a Halo moment where suddenly you play a match
Only
and
in
just do
Halo.
something that is
This-
like
yeah.
only possible in Halo, even compared to
This-
other FPSs.
What Wyatt and I talked about this when we were playing is that Halo Infinite has now stolen the hashtag only in Battlefield moment from Battlefield. Is because now like okay, your sandbox has hovercraft that can crawl up buildings because your physics are broken. Okay. You can grapple thrice up a mountain and then into the air so high that you can hijack a helicopter and then kick the other guy out of it and then blow up his whole team.
But it's hard to do,
Only in
right? That's the
Halo.
point. The point is that in Halo you have they've carefully balanced resources to where that grappling hook is limited. So
Wait,
you
can you
know
grapple
when
onto
you're
planes in Halo?
Yeah, you can. That's
you
like
can.
hijack.
Yeah, you got to hit it correctly, but it's hard to do, but you can. And the range is super
So
limited.
satisfying.
Yep.
But it's so fun.
I gotta go change. I'll be right
We-
The
back.
fact that you have like the limited 3 grapples makes it so satisfying when you do something cool with it because you know you're expending that resource well.
You can get up to 5, I think.
I know, but
Yeah, but you have
most
to pick
pickups are
something up
3.
though. Yeah.
I think this transitions beautifully into. I want to talk about the sandbox specifically because
Yeah.
that's what I think has defined Halo both in the campaign and the multiplayer. Like that's really where it's like secret sauce.
I mean, that's
lies,
always
is-
been Forge mode has always been such a popular thing. Like Halo community, people say it's Battlefield, but Halo has always been the same way of sandboxy freedom.
It's the sandbox king, and I don't think I've seen a better like Halo multiplayer sandbox. I think this is like the new king, in my opinion.
It's the best
in
one.
terms of the
Yeah.
in terms of the series. Like, if a game allows you to have a buddy drive a warthog by himself off of a grav lift up to a cliff, and while it's in midair, you get to grapple jack up and climb into the turret and shoot someone that was also on the grav lift and shoot him out of the
Yeah.
air. I
It's
mean,
so sick.
I
And
mean,
then you might even
God.
land on someone. Why? You might even land on someone and splatter them and get the
Like-
kill
Yeah.
for that too.
Like when I was standing under the warthog spawn.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, you had
What-
chopper
one
being
of the
dropped. from
coolest
the balcony.
Oh,
things.
chopper.
So I was in a 5-stack a little while ago. One of the coolest things, so a friend of mine was coming through with the Razorback, right? I saw an enemy, used the repulsor, pushed him back, and then my friend just ran him over.
Oh, that's so sick.
It was the coolest thing. Like, there are just so many amazing moments that's only afforded to you because the sandbox is as in-depth as it is.
Yeah.
And that Razorback too, I think that's like the sandbox like vehicle pretty much because it doesn't have guns on it. It's literally it's just a scout hog with more spaces on it basically. But in stockpile, you can put the power seeds in. You can put 2 of them in like the back
You
of a
can
little
put the
trunk
weapons
area.
back there too.
It's you could put things back there without people having to actually hold them. So, and I don't know how this will never happen again because this is all randos and these people have the brains of like goldfish usually. But we'd won the first round of Stockholm game with 1 capture because I drove in a Razorback and all the power seeds got piled in at once pretty much because we had enough spaces for all of them and the 2 in the back, and I just drove the team back and we just put in all 5 at once and we won the first round with 1 car. It was amazing. It was so stupid.
And I don't know if either of you two know this, but you can throw a plasma grenade at a weapon pickup and it will explode and launch it to you.
Yes.
Yep.
It's
that was one of the things
the fact that they've thought about that is the kind of thing that's like, this is why Halo's been the king of this sort of thing. It is because
so sick.
little interactions like that you might never find a use for personally, but someone is going to do some highlight reel worthy clip with it, right?
I think
Alex.
I think the big difference is that they're not afraid to have, like, their physics aren't realistic. They're very video game, like, over the top physics, but that's
They're
what makes
arena
it
shooter
fun.
physics. Yeah.
Because I feel like so many games are too afraid to go too overboard with it, and you
They're afraid to
can't
feel like
obviously
video
go
games.
overboard to it. Yeah,
Which is
you can't. I mean,
weird.
and you can't go overboard with it, and it's too much. But there's a level where it's like it's not realistic, but it's way more fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of, especially modern games, are just too nervous to go down that route.
That's why I play Just Cause 4.
Alex, I think I
Okay.
found out the secret of why you might not have killed that person is because if your gamer senses activate at the perfect millisecond, you can swap weapons with one on the ground, and if you do that, the frame that a skewer shot would hit you, it hits the weapon that you're dropping instead and does not kill you.
That is possible.
because it touches the weapon instead.
Yep.
So I don't know if that guy
that's
just went
bull.
ultra instinct
That's
at the last
awesome. No, I
second,
kinda
but
love
you
that,
can't do that.
actually.
Oh, because when is that ever going to happen? Like
Yeah.
that's gonna exist for the people with the video game MythBusters YouTube videos to find out, which is where I
Wait,
got
now
it
I
from.
Or for
This is never gonna happen to
accidents.
me.
Great, now I have
Yep.
2 Halo moments.
It also just produces really funny moments. Like, I can't tell you how many times just like just a dead body just falls out of the sky right in front of me. No context. He just
Amazing.
You know, someone had a cool
Gotta-
thing happen.
yeah.
I
Or just,
love how...
there's like a tire from like a warthog just kind of rolling by, and you're like, I
Mhm.
missed the party apparently.
I love how when you get the ragdoll physics in, when you die and crumple to the ground, it really does not look like that armor weighs a ton. It's so funny.
No,
It's great.
It's beautiful. I love it. It's like
Halo's always had
styrofoam or
very
something.
specific looking like ragdoll physics,
And they
it's
have
so
thankfully never
distinctly-
changed it.
It's so
Yeah.
distinctly Halo, and it's so funny because sometimes you'll be like in midair, and then you'll just A pose after you've already dead. It's just, you're just flying, and then just and you just
Or like-
crumple.
Or like when your body is still on the ground, people can shuffle you around. People can blast you all over
It's
the
awesome.
place.
It's very common to see you like just fall over dead, and then another explosion just.
And just,
The
you
arms
fly.
flailing over, you go in the C
Exactly.
shape and blah blah blah.
Or just like seeing, like, if you run over someone in a warthog, just seeing their body just like roll off the front and just kind of.
hmm All right.
I think
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
I think having this is my possible segue to whatever is going to happen next. But I think this multiplayer as a whole is just so good in general, and is so free and pretty much non BS. Is like, yeah, there's problems to fix, and we'll touch on the more serious problems in a sec probably.
Yeah.
But like as a whole, it's such a like the sandbox itself is perfect, and the gunplay is nearly there. Nothing needs to be nerfed. Things just have to be buffed. Like this is the most people that I've ever like had asking, like begging me to play Halo with them in my entire life. Like this is all those people
Guilty.
that it's I know. Don't worry. It'll probably happen after we're done recording.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
almost
it will.
definitely.
But the like all these friend groups over my life that have been like, oh, do you guys want to play Halo? Like, oh, this guy hasn't played Halo before. Let's go through the campaigns or whatever. Like, I got someone to buy an Xbox One time because they hadn't played Halo 3 before and wanted to play MCC when I wasn't there now. And I was like, okay, that's weird, but sure, dude, that's great. This like the community's back now. There's no like, oh, MCC is like weird, and they took like 6 years to actually fix it, and it's pretty good now. They fixed most of the problems with it.
Oh my god!
But like
they're
like
back
especially during that
again.
period of like 4 and 5, where like I lost all the friends that wanted to play Halo with me because they just didn't want to play Halo anymore. They heard how bad Halo 5 was from certain perspectives, and they just didn't even want to get a copy. So it wasn't even like
I'm the
wasn't
only
even,
one
like,
that I
a
knew
direction at home.
that really played Halo 5. I couldn't convince anyone to play it with me, even if they owned it. I just couldn't get them to do it.
I can't blame any of those people having owned it myself.
Yeah.
But now like this is looking like it's going to be like the biggest one ever, and it's amazing that now we're back in that spot where maybe Halo isn't at like the forefront of FPS like development in terms of like mechanics and how like groundbreaking things in FPS like creation and stuff, like how
It's just well
1, 2,
made.
and 3 were.
But sometimes you
That-
don't need that,
That honor
right?
belongs to Battlefield.
Oh, of course. It's now it's sometimes you don't need that, because I think something like that happened in 5 where they innovated so much, and we talked about this when we were playing, that it was just no longer, it didn't feel like what most people would consider a classic Halo product. And this time they replicated what a classic Halo product would feel like to play in 2021 so well that it's like it feels perfect. It's a true arena style shooter that has all the trappings of something that's super modern at the same time. And there's nothing else can really do that, because everything is pushing for super like tactical realism stuff. It's a very weird time, and Halo is somehow still living through it, which is great.
I think the one goal, like above all else, the one goal that 343 needed to do, but the one thing they need to get right with Infinite, was take that classic Halo feel that we know and love, but is dated, admittedly, and just make it feel modern without losing, or just bring it into a modern
lose the heart.
context without losing what makes it. And I think they thread that needle really, really well. Like, I think the way that they've handled sprinting is they've handled it in a way where even people who are mostly against sprinting don't seem to really have an issue with it this time around.
Yeah.
Wait,
I think
who's
the way
against
they
sprinting?
it's a whole thing.
Yeah, because Halo never used to have sprinting, but now they've balanced it well, where like if you're sprinting with an objective, it reveals you. So you have like legitimate considerations with using it.
I think that, and the speed is just right too, where they don't really need to increase the map size to accommodate it.
Yeah.
Too. And then also with the way they've done aim down sights, I think it's because something I didn't know until actually a couple days ago. If you're like aiming down sights with the assault rifle, it doesn't descope you, which I didn't.
Yeah, because it's you're not using a sight. Like, it's something like the battle rifle. You're scoped in because you get like a very big magnification. But if you're just, I guess like the in canon explanation for that is you're just like
magnifying
your up on it more, or like you're using your visor or something.
And I think the way that they've handled like aim down sights is something that like people who play a lot of Call of Duty will recognize it, but it's also something where you don't really rely on it a lot of the time, and it makes it still feel like Halo. And all of the weapons that have an actual scope, there is still descoping, which is a very important part of,
especially like, sniper rifle balancing and whatnot.
I'm looking at you, Halo 4.
God.
The quick scoper's paradise.
We're running out of time, so all I can say is that I'm against descoping, but we can't really get into that anymore.
It is. I get why people would be against
de-scoping-
it, but it is inherently part of Halo at this point.
Yeah,
That's part of how it's always been.
You take it out and you get Halo 4.
Halo with de-scoping and Bungie with the amount of things that inflict flinch are.
Well, it's because the main thing with
Right.
Halo's descoping is that generally your accuracy doesn't change very much.
It never changes.
It's just your zoom. So you can still hit someone just fine with a weapon. You just have to aim unscoped. So
yeah.
And it allows the other person to have a comeback. Like if you get it, like if you're shooting them from behind, they can turn around and descope you. It gives them a chance to fight back. Because
Yeah.
Halo one-on-one engagements with other players in Halo is not like a quick 1 second thing. It's like a freaking cage.
it's like a
match for
3-second cage
solid-
match.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about gameplay, and I think overall most of our gameplay impressions are all very good, aside from a
Very.
few balance quirks. We got to talk about the one major negative right now, which is the progression system they've designed is just strange. I want to hit on two. There are two things in the game that I really don't think should be there because they're solutions to problems that 343 themselves have created, and they're bad solutions. Challenge swaps and XP boosts are rewards both from the free and the paid battle pass in certain areas. And basically what they let you do is skip the lame challenges. The lame challenges are the creation of 343. They are not good. They suck. Getting a challenge swap as a reward is just not fun, right? It just doesn't feel good. Getting an XP boost as a reward also feels very lame because XP boosts are like 1 hour consumables, but you have the issue of you need to then super targetedly go after specific challenges. And when you go after these challenges, you may just not want to play the objective because sometimes it's really hard to play the objective while doing these challenges. So
Or
I have
you have to actively go against the objective.
Yep, I have a
remember
challenge
one of
right
them-
now, which is kill 25 people with a battle rifle, right? Not a hugely problematic challenge in concept, right? It's just get a battle rifle and kill some people with it. It's not that hard to do, but it means I'm now actively spending time in all of my matches checking to see if the battle rifle has spawned because the spawns in the game are random. You don't
how
know
you can
which
fix
weapons
that?
are. What?
You know how you can fix that? If you play ranked, you start with a battle rifle.
Yeah, but I don't want to
Then you
play
have to play
ranked
ranked.
because then I have to
I'm
play
just
ranked
saying.
and play it to do challenges, right? Like it's such a
Which
it's
is
a-
another challenge is playing
Exactly.
ranked.
See, they've created all these problems where the gameplay is all very well designed, but the challenges encourage you to not play the game, right?
Yeah.
They encourage you to play the game in a way that's bad.
I've had the most amount of fun. So because I have no life, I've done all the weeklies at this point. I did that like 2 days ago. And since then, I've had no challenges. I've got no XP other than just getting 50 XP for finishing a match. It's the most amount of fun I've had with the game because I can just play it
Yeah.
without.
And I'm just like imagining
without
how
that
much more
annoying-
fun, Wyatt, would you be having if instead of challenges we just had the same progression that MCC had?
I don't know about
It should be based on
MCC.
medals. It should be
It should be
based
based
on
on-
medals you get.
It should be like reach. It should be based on medals. I think MCC, while having progression now, I think.
Well,
What-
I MCC and Reach I kind of would use interchangeably here because I think both of them solve the problem in different ways. But the point I think I'm making is that the current progression system is inherently just not super well designed.
Yeah.
And it feels weird because you can tell they're trying to fix problems with band-aids of their system they've made that has its own faults that they have created, right? It's not... I feel like there's a solution here to maybe you just have the free-to-play players have the challenge system or something, and you move people that have paid for the battle pass or whatever onto a different thing. Or if you buy the campaign, your XP track is the medal track or something, just so that way, if you are paying for the game with the full price or something, or you have it in Game Pass or something, you have progression more akin to what a traditional Halo game would have, rather than this weird free-to-play hybrid that isn't like...
Yeah.
I want to make it clear, it doesn't feel scummy, right? Like, it
No, it
doesn't feel
It just
predatory
feels
in
bad-
any way.
It just feels poorly
It
designed.
just feels unrewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where... Go ahead, Brett.
They had a thing before, and this is also I forget if I think we did at the beginning of this discussion. I forget where they Band-Aid fixed it by giving you 50 confirmed XP no matter how you do in a match. But originally, because the first few days that this was out, I super no lifed it, and I got it to the point where my play games and get XP eventually challenges got up to like rank 13, and at that point it was like it was giving me like 2 XP for only winning like 3 games, or 200 XP for only winning like 3 games. And I think they could do like an in between where you could get more XP during the day depending on how many games you actually played within that 24-hour period, just to give you something for playing more, you know? But I think in general there does have to be like this 50 XP is certainly fine for now, and you know, we're talking about this as if it's gonna be like fixed in the future, which hopefully it does because it's not perfect and I want it to be. But like giving you something, I think ultimately for me, uh, giving you something extra for actually winning a game
or for just performing well. Like
Yeah.
I feel like even if you lose, you could still be like the best player in that match, and your
Yeah.
team still lost it.
Which
And
is
that's
where the
medals
medals come in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm
because
also
it feels
at
like the
same
game
point.
tracks your progress in a way that does that, right? Like encourages you to
It's-
play the
yeah.
objective by doing medals, and you have like objective
It
time
shows
counters.
you all the medals you get at the end of the game
end
and
of the
explains
screen,
what
yeah.
they are, like why you got them and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
And it feels
they have
really
different ranks now.
bad to get like 10 medals in a match and then just get 50 XP for finishing the match because you didn't do your
Well,
challenges.
it's also you don't get as invested because it's like, oh, no matter if we win or lose, I'm getting the same amount of experience.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
where I am right now because I finished last night I finished my weeklies as well. So now I have like 75% like the best time of my life because now I don't have 343 on my shoulders telling me that I need to use this gun or do this specific thing, which is like I wasn't not having fun doing that. It's just now I have more freedom to do whatever I want. But then sometimes I just like think about it and it's like, my team's not doing super well on this game of Total Control.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't really care because I'm only going to get 50 XP either way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least like 100 XP for winning, or like something per like medal or something. Like maybe not for every medal, but like, oh, if you like a double kill is plus like 10 or something, or 5, like something like that, where you know they wouldn't have to like go and recalculate like every single thing, because that's probably
Because
like,
it feels like just maybe you keep the system as it is in place right now, aside from like changing the challenges that encourage you to use like specific vehicles and stuff, because those are bad,
Yeah.
right? Those are particularly bad. As I saw
Rank
earlier
especially,
today,
I feel so bad for those people.
I saw like multiple teammates earlier today, running around the base looking for specific rare weapons because they had weapon challenges, and just like looking around and then getting angry when someone else would take it, and it's just like
Yeah.
The line
this
to
feels
the shade
so unnecessary. Yeah, the shade
Well,
turret is awful.
Sometimes trying to get shade turret kills feels like you're in the line for the restroom and you're just waiting for other people to get their shit done. You know what I mean? Like it was really dumb. That, and also like the challenges can get very specific. Like I want to mention the shade turret thing again because that's probably one of the most BS challenges. Like the shade turret itself like is pretty good. Like it hits pretty hard. You can kill with it pretty easily. The problem is it's only on one map in one mode, and once it blows up on the map, it doesn't come back.
Mhm.
So you have one chance in that one map to actually.
and you
like,
can't
get
control
kills
getting
with it.
that map, right? Like it's
No,
not
you
Yeah.
can't.
not like MCC
And-
where you can select modes and whatnot.
And it's only on your side. So the only time where it really is useful is like capture the flag, where they're actually coming onto your side. Other than
Mhm.
that, they're just going to avoid you entirely. And
Yeah.
I've mentioned this a couple times. I swear to God, the only reason they don't let you select game modes right now is because that would mean that you can get through challenges quicker because you can just select the game mode
Yeah.
that you need.
And it just feels like,
Like-
you don't even need to change the average amount of XP people earn. You just need to make it so that they don't earn it in this backwards way that encourages them to not play the game, right?
You should be
Yeah.
rewarding everything that they're doing as much as you can.
Mhm.
Reward people playing the game how they want to play it, not make them play in some arbitrary way that
Mhm.
is just randomly generated. Because there are some
The
bad
only-
challenges.
Yeah, the only time you should be giving people extra credit is when they actually do the thing that is what the game mode is supposed to be. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
One of
that's
the
the only time
hardest-
that you should get extra shit. Yeah.
One of the hardest ones, like if you have to get wasp kills, like everyone wants the wasp, so that one's really difficult.
Because it's
or
so
if you're
rare.
given-
It's like that and the gun
It's-
goose feel
Yeah.
awful because you have to
Gun
wait
goose,
for that one thing to maybe spawn on a map.
Also, if you get the wraiths, I think I've maybe run into 2 wraiths. I've
I've had a
Wraiths are
challenge for the last
too-
3 days to kill an enemy wraith. I have not seen a single wraith in the last 3
recap-
days.
To recap, I've played this game for over 2 days, and I've seen 2 wraiths in the entire game. After 2 days. Like, if you have anything wraith related, I just...
Hit me up.
Our heart goes out to you. There's nothing we can do, and I do think that I don't think it's like a malicious thing that they don't have game mode selectable. I think it's just like for now they don't want to risk splitting the player base, like
because there aren't a
between
ton
modes.
of maps and modes right now.
Yeah. So, but I think combined with whether it's like metal things or getting extra XP for winning, and then doing letting you select your own like playlist like you can in MCC, I think that will end up fixing a lot of these things in better ways than we might even expect, honestly. Like a lot of challenges that might seem like BS will probably seem a lot easier when you can just like pick certain maps or in certain modes. Like I don't want to have to sit to even chance upon a game of oddball in quick play when I have to win 3 and I might get 1 in a play session. It's
or it's like, oh, you have to kill enemies that are trying to return their flag and capture the flag, which means you have to get a map with capture the flag. You also have to make sure that you're pretty much the attacker at all times to even get it.
And what I want to make sure here is I think the picking the game modes thing so you can find that specific thing should be implemented for the sake of players wanting to play a game mode, but it should not be seen as the solution for these challenges, because that is fixing a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself, right? It's fixing the wrong thing, and it's just kind of encouraging that weird cyclical creation and fixing of problems that shouldn't be in the game to begin with. Especially because, like, right now they have the time to fix it, right? Because it's not a huge problem yet, but the more people play this game and the more, like, in the future with additional seasons, especially because, like, this Battle Pass, I think, was meant to last 6 months, which seems like a weird amount of time.
It's meant to last 6 months because you get 50 experience per game completion.
Which just feels
they've
weird.
increased it by like a month or 2 because they're delaying the next season to make sure it's like
because Halo Reach was grindy, right? But Halo Reach was grindy in a good way, where you really felt accomplished for getting things, and this it just kind of feels like you have to metagame the system super hard. Whereas in Reach you could just play the game.
Well, the other thing is like something that I guess this was also an issue in 5 to a certain extent, but one thing that I've never really experienced when it comes to like Halo like wearing Halo armor is that more so than ever, it's like I'm not wearing this because I think it looks cool. I'm wearing this because it shows off how like
the
how
stuff
much
I
I've
did.
progressed in the battle pass.
It's the same reason I feel like I don't know. I say this, but I've seen a lot of people wearing the store armors. To me they hold no appeal because you didn't
earn them.
It's not showing off an achievement, which is what Halo's always kind of been about. Is you get that when you get the cool flaming skull, that means you reach that master ranking and whatnot. So having those kind of things stay that way, I think, is very important for the game. So
I think depending, because we don't have a lot of details on it, but I think depending on how this like, because the way that they're doing for people that don't know, the way that they're doing like the little like mini season, like the closest thing that they have to what a normal battle pass would be is that they're having like events, and that we have one coming up in
next week,
2 days, I think when we're recording.
Yeah, November 22nd or something. When it starts.
I thought it was the 23rd. If it's the 22nd, then it's.
It might be the 23rd. I haven't checked.
But it's that, like, I think they said 30 ranks or something, and that's where you get all like the really cool like samurai armor stuff. So I'm okay if I have to do crazy challenges, I'll do it for the samurai armor. I won't do it for a rank in the regular battle pass, but I'll do it for the crazy like deer antler samurai armor that looks like I had to work.
I also really the one thing I am concerned about with these events is that they've said they want to avoid FOMO as much as possible. I really hope they stick to that for these events and make these things still achievable in some way, because it would be really sucky if you haven't started playing the game for whatever reason. Say you're on like military deployment, or you don't have a computer right now. You have life things, and you like love samurai
or you should be doing schoolwork.
Yeah, it's like there's so many reasons why FOMO is just not a good thing in games. It drains your consumers out to where they're not going to want to play your franchise anymore. Cough, cough, Destiny.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the kind of thing where they need to avoid that. And if they stick to what they've said they're going to do and avoid that successfully, or they implement something like Monster Hunter has, where you repeat the events often, so that way it's not like a thing that is unachievable for a long time. It comes back like once a month. Then that would be fine, right? If you rotate them in and out. But as long as you're not making it so this is like, oh, if you miss this 1 week thing, you are permanently never able to get this armor set.
Yeah, yeah.
And that would suck really badly. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Destiny. Puff.
I do, and I don't know if anyone else does. I do have they're non-progression problems, but I do have problems with other parts of this game that one frustrates me to no end, and the other one is just kind of like
You want to talk
why.
about Spartan Course?
Well, that's the why one. I don't know why I can't put a helmet from one guy onto the head of another guy.
Or even worse, colors.
Or like literally
Behind-
sharing colors
Behind a $20 paywall.
It's not behind a
it's
paywall
not.
though, right?
There's no other option.
You just can't do it.
I can't put like Carter's colors on a Halo Infinite Mark 7 Spartan because they don't have the option in the color palette or like visor colors and stuff.
Well, and
It's
I just
super
unlocked
weird.
the Carter Spartan core, right? And I was like, oh, Carter has that really cool, like really high shoulder pad that I want to put on my guy with the EVA helmet. But you can't mix and match your cores. You can't.
Yeah.
If you have your mark, you have your mark 5, right, which is like your default guy, and then you
Yeah.
have your Mark 4, which is where all of your reach stuff goes. But you can't put your reach armor on your Mark 5 for some reason. I don't understand why.
It's just confusing.
Why have that limitation? Why does this exist?
Because apparently bots can be randomized to have sharing armor core like colors and pieces, and it's a weird thing. Maybe
and the seasonal armor as well. Just to like twist the knife.
Well, which means that it's in the game, and you can get a little taste of it. But like, it's maybe something like wasn't working, where like certain parts were like clipping like really bad depending on it, and they just wanted to fix it or something. But I really hope it seems like something that they should add, because it's just like, why can't I do it? If anything, if you're thinking about it from a money making standpoint, it's a disincentive for me to buy something, because if I buy something from the shop, or if I get something from a season, then I can't use it on my guy. Well, then I don't want to buy it.
It's like if I really like the reach armor, and in the future battle passes don't give me anything for the reach armor, what's the point, right? Like I'm always going to use the reach armor. What matters? So yeah, that is definitely a problem.
Yeah. That and my one actual legitimate issue with the game so far is that they really did put the Halo 3 minimap in a game where people can sprint and fly at you with a grappling hook, and it's infuriating. It is absolutely infuriating.
The minimap is completely useless.
It's for one thing, it's like an inch on the bottom corner of the screen, which is fine, but I can't scale it up to make it easily seeable, and even then it covers like 2 feet of space surrounding me, it feels like. So
if
I can't.
If you see someone on your mini map, they're already shooting at you.
They've already won. That, and also with how many, I don't mind how powerful grenades are, because they should be that powerful. It's Halo, but it's the year of our Lord 2021. Where are the grenade indicators? 3 for 3, please. My God, I've so many times it has
especially
happened
because
where
it's super hard to distinguish an ally grenade and an enemy grenade.
It's
Yeah.
I've done it so many times where I hear the little tinkle of a frag being dropped nearby, and I go into cover only to realize after being blown up by it that I had just hopped on top of it instead of away from it. It's super frustrating, and then again, that feels like a thing that they just like should add, because it's in every other game ever right now, and would not take away from the Halo-ness of a Halo game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. With that, I think we've hit our shoutouts point. We have this is on track to be probably our longest episode of the regular podcast. So, who wants to start first for shoutouts?
I'll start. Shout out to the Craig reference in the Halo Infinite campaign that people who were fortunate enough to play that found. Apparently, it's an album cover, and he's some like traveling like musician, like popular brute musician.
It's really good,
which is hilarious. I love to see when developers can kind of poke fun at themselves and show a bit of humanity. So that was very nice to see.
And we need more Easter eggs in games. They're rare now.
For sure.
Makes me sad.
We do.
All right.
Halo's always been.
Who wants to go
close,
next?
though. I will go. My shout out is to we've talked about this before in the episode where we talked about Kojima, where like usually one person usually gets known for the game in certain roles, but usually they can't save a game. Sometimes exceptions happen, and Joe Staten has apparently revealed himself to be a god in human clothing, and has pretty much evidently just like single-handedly saved Halo Infinite from whatever guy that was there first. Because ever since they got rid of him and replaced him with Joe Staten, it's like all the people whose talents like felt like they were being at least a little bit misused in previous 343 games. Like all of the things are really good now, and he as a creative director is clearly what like at least started the development of a much better game than it would have been if it released last year.
This makes no sense because anytime there's a game with troubled development, they're like, "Oh, we're bringing back a creative director from the old days to finish up development."
Yeah.
It never
It
ends
usually
well.
never works.
Yeah.
Anthem. They brought back what's his name?
I don't know. I've
Cares?
blocked it from my memory.
He's
they brought
lost
back-
any good faith.
They brought back the creative director from Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and they're like, "Yeah, he's back. Everything's gonna be fine." No.
There, he's gone again.
So,
And he left
It's-
again.
he's like, "Not my problem anymore. I got my check. See ya." But no, this shouldn't be the case that things got better after Joey came back. I love the man, but this shouldn't be the case. And somehow
I'm
it
just
is,
glad
and
that
it's
it
amazing.
happened.
I'm
glad that
so
it
glad
happened.
that it happened.
All right. Look, I got to give a shout out to non-violent video games because I've been playing two other games like the last 2 weeks. Grow Song of the Evertree and House Flipper, both of which have nothing even resembling combat and are just peaceful games where you go like grow a field or build a house, and they're extremely fun.
House Flipper has some horror game elements to it.
House Flipper can get scary sometimes, but Grow is one of those like little indie games that came out. I was just like, this is the perfect game, and it's excellent. It's the kind of thing where I look at this, I'm like, man, sometimes you just gotta do Animal Crossing, but with randomly generated worlds that you grow by singing to trees, and then go back to manage a town with randomly generated villagers and do tasks for them and then build a village because of course the game has town building in it. And sometimes it's just very excellent. So Grow Something on the Tree. Great. Alex, what you got for our final shout out?
I'm gonna do one that's Halo themed as well. Shout out to the meme where it goes, Master Chief, mind telling me what you're doing in the nurse's office? Sir, I threw up.
I screwed up.
My favorite one is ballin', but at
Ballin'.
what cost?
yeah.
What are you
Master
doing
Chief,
with that Big Mac?
I'm so tired, and it makes more sense when you see the image because it was one of those wall-mounted cameras on a school. But it was a Master Chief. Do you mind telling me what you're doing on the wall, sir? Security camera.
Hate it.
All right. With that, we're going to end the show. As always, Tuesday mornings, 7 a.m. Eastern Time on the podcast platform of your choice and YouTube. You can also catch us live on Twitch Sundays around 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're there. Woo.
I also like the one, Alex, where Master Chief, what are you doing in bed? And the Master Chief goes,